Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Dailies on Network Television, where we keep you updated the morning program. Today, the 15th of July, 2024. Quite a number of stories on the paper where we're seeing that Dangote have said he was able to resolve the issue he was having concerning the crude oil. So hopefully he will start, producing the oil, as well as we're seeing a number of bills that will be signed by the House of Senate, and then many other, stories that we feel are of interest. So please do well to contribute your own opinion, and also you can drop in your own perspective on certain things that should be done better. I am Sela Elisha Dasham. I'll be doing the program with Rachel Tanzi. Good morning, Rachel.
Morning,
How you
Sally.
doing?
I'm fine, and you?
Great. How was
The
weekend?
weekend was okay.
All right, thank you
Yes.
so much. All right, we shall go straight into the paper, starting with the first newspaper.
On first news, the big story Dangote refinery supplies petrol in August amid challenges from IOCs. Spain emerges 2024 Euro champions after defeating England 2-1. Jonathan urges completion of abandoned projects in the Niger Delta. Chima wins season 9 of Nigerian Idol. NDLEA seizes cocaine, opioids concealed in shoes and custard containers. Reveal Nigerian government agreement with ex-court orders Lai Mohammed. Still on the paper, EFCC chair exposes some religious groups more corrupt than public officials. Lagos government insists on enforcing ban on danfos. Koro pays on October 1st. Reveal Nigeria's government agreement with ex-court orders Lai Mohammed. Violence has no place in democracy. Tinubu condemns assassination attempt on Trump. We have a picture story where we can see Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu participates in the annual Lagos Tree Planting Day 2024 Team Nature Our Future, organized by Last Park under the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On Metrics newspaper, UBA to empower customers with 200 million naira. Promo gather steam. You can start reading on the front page and continue on page 3. Also still on the paper, Dangote to lease multi-billion-dollar refinery, fertilizer coils on NGX. Reveal why NNPC Limited no longer owns 20% of Dangote refinery. Says Dangote refinery will source crude oil from African nations. More detail found on page 3. Lawyers claiming police can issue CMRI. I take that lawyers claiming police can issue CMRIS certificate not authorized coming from the NBA clarifies. And on local government autonomy, you cannot separate the baby from the mother coming from Fireshare. The big story here, Tinubu's food import policy. Additional raises alarm. Once Nigeria cannot import its way out of food insecurity. Caution against turning into a food import dependent nation. Policy short-term measures to address rising food prices coming from Tinubu. More detail found on page 2. Tinubu condemned assassination attempt on Trump, says it's distasteful. You can find that on page 9. Federal government files complaint against Daily Trust over Samoa agreement story. We can't remain silent as Nigerians plan evil protests against Tinubu's government coming from the Ariwa group. Downside, we have Ego Doris reveal true cause of actor deaths. More detail can be found on page 15. We have a picture story strengthening bilateral relationship, where we can see the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu with Mr. Ayole Otuyalo, the honorary consultant for Romania in Lagos State, to discuss enhancing the relationship between the Lagos State government and Romania recently. That's all on Metrics newspaper.
On New Telegraph, the big story insecurity. Military security agencies must develop human intel network. Statement from an ex-DSS director. The writer says capacity, not intelligence, lacking. A statement from a Jeffo as Omar Chiri warns Boko Haram terrorists returning to suicide bombing. Details can be found on page 2. On hardship, consumer loans surged by 44.98% to 3.82 trillion naira. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 3. Cooking gas price rises as 12.5 kg refill hit 14,500 naira. More details can be found on page 7. Concerns mount over upsurge in rights abuse. Trump calls on Americans to stand united after assassination attempt. Revealed how Chima Udoye emerged Nigerian Idol Season 9 winner. Heartbreak for England again as Spain emerge Euro champions. More details can be found on page 31. You've equal opportunities with Umahi Uzodinma Ganduje assures Anyim. This is from APC. Details can be found on page 26. PDP sweeps Delta LG polls. Oboruwore announces immediate swear-in. Disclose details of federal government pact with ex-court orders Lai Mohammed. Southeast APC faults Tinubu's appointment of agency heads. More details can be found on page 2. Dangote conglomerate projects $30 billion revenue in 2025. Cement coil generates $3.3 billion revenue in 2023. More details can be found on page 3. LG's long walk to financial autonomy. You can find the details on page 2, 9, 10, 11, and 28. And on page 27, study links quality sleep to reduce loneliness. And that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
On the leadership newspaper, editors, media executive hold column for Olatunji Dare at 80. More detail found on page 6. Biden orders independent review of Trump shooting. Detail found on page 7. And here we have a fact check that says what reason did Dabire Arewe give for migration? And then Defense Headquarters says criminals plan attack on critical infrastructure. That's on fact check and trending. Both case stories can be found on page 2. Banks bolster economic growth as private sector credit soar by 30 trillion naira. More detail in the paper. Federal government promote 32,000 paramilitary personnel in 1 year. Stakeholders profile stiffer penalty for drug abuse and trafficking, with the writer here saying 14.3 million Nigerians abuse drugs and then 10.6 million hook on cannabis. Nigeria must wage a decisive war against drug abuse, coming from UN. NDLEA seized 7.6 million kilograms of illicit substance. More detail of that story can be found on page 4. NNPC stake in our refinery is 7.2%, coming from Dangote. And on Twitter ban, court orders federal government to disclose agreement with X. We will record the time we were banned from using Twitter for a period of time. So there seems to be an agreement, and here we're seeing that the court is ordering the federal government to disclose that. And on local government autonomy, PDP wins all seat in Adamawa and Delta, talking about local government polls, where we're seeing a number of governors are beginning to rush to conduct elections so that they will not be excluded from the federal allocation coming in soon. And on Samoa agreement, here we are having Ombudsman confirm federal government complaint against Daily Trust report on their Samoa agreement. Detail found on page 6. We have a picture story talking about the Guarantee Trust Bank, some of the shares, and here we can see some of the meeting that held recently in Lagos. More detail of every other story you want is in the paper, and that's all on Leadership newspaper.
On Daily Independent, harsh environment slows telcos investment, impacts service quality. Dangote Refinery, Dangote Fertilizer to list on stock market next year. Kanu's release will separate genuine agitators from criminals, LP lawmakers tell Tinubu. More details can be found on page 7. Rivers Assembly crisis, PDP denies filing appeal challenging High Court order. Nobody can stop Benue governor from doing 2 terms, Jimade vows. More details can be found on page 7. 2027, Nwodo charges PDP to place premium on internal democracy. Court orders ministry to disclose details of pact between the federal government and X. You can start with the details on the front page. While Lagos may reinstate monthly environmental sanitation by Sanwo-Olu. NMCC receives complaint from federal government against Daily Trust newspaper. Details can be found on page 6. Spain defeat England 2-1 to win Euro 2024 final, and where we can see Captain Morata lifting the trophy for the team, and that's all the news on Daily Independent newspaper.
Alright, let's take a look at this day newspaper. Tinubu hails Nduka Obibana at 65, says he has demonstrated passion for human development. Sanwo-Olu, Abiodun, Kalu, Oyedoja, and others salute this day and Arise News chairman. President Tinubu, here we're having President Tinubu, Starmer, Macron, and other world leaders condemn attack on Trump. This you can find on page 8, and here we are having a beacon talking about 34 years of ever since GT opened, so you can actually just take a closer look at it since it's taking the big size of the paper, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, we have a picture story at GTCO's Facts Behind the Offer, where we can see from left to right, we can see Alhaji Rashid Yusuf doing of the capital market. We can see Mr. Femi Sobajan, CEO NGX Regulation Limited. We can see Mr. Tony, Head Primary Market Nigerian Exchange Limited, Mr. Temi, the GMD and CEO NGX Group, and many others. The big story on the paper: consumer spending down as Nigerians remain gloomy on economy. Weak spending triggers decline in e-payment transaction. Value of e-payment falls 5.7% to 92.8 trillion naira. Firms reduce output expansion due to low consumer spending. Details can be found on page 23. Still on Samoa agreement, Ombudsman begins probe of federal government's complaint against Daily Trust. NBA gives IG 7 days to stop ACMR certificate issuance. UK court dismisses PNID appeal, upholds £43 million award in favor of Nigeria. Trump assassination attempt, Tinubu world leaders call shooting distasteful. More details can be found on page 5. We have a column by Wela for Kemfa on page 16 and sports on page 40. Euro 2024 Spain hit 2-1 pain on England. That's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
Alright, let's take a look at the Daily News Herb newspaper. And we're having the NSA Ribadu hands over rescue Kaduna journalist to minister as Idris commends security agency. We will recall that last week they were still in the den of the kidnappers, and we're seeing that finally they have been rescued. So here Ribadu have handed them over to the minister. You can read more detail of what happened and how they were rescued in the paper. And on local government autonomy, not yet Ihuru, where we're seeing here Senator wants battle not over, governors will fight back. Assure National Assembly amend Constitution, said we will comply state governors to adhere strictly to Supreme Court judgment. And we have Algo applaud Tinubu AGF over the Apex Court verdict. More detail can be found in the paper. Bauchi female journalist fight for life in ICU, seek 5 million naira for brain tumor surgery. More detail found in the paper. NNPC stake at Dangote refinery now only 7.2%, coming from Dangote, reduced from the initial 20%. And on ban, no going back on Danfo Korobis on October 1st, coming from the Lagos government. Commence e-call up for Lekki Epe FTZ August 1st, body to find in the paper. UK court dismisses P&ID appeal, uphold a 43 million euro award in favor of Nigeria. Crisis bill in Ibadan over move to stop Lakoja from becoming Olu Ibadan. You can find that in the paper. And reveal Tinubu's nominee not statutorily qualified to be PENCOM coming from the DG, Pencom DG. And on Trump shooting, we have Nigeria stand in solidarity with US, says Tinubu. Also here we are having EFCC red notice Yahaya Bello trap in Kogi government house. Downside of the paper, ECMR police bow to pressure, IGP suspend enforcement, orders massive enlightenment. And we have a picture so where we can see the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, after receiving the two rescued journalists and their family member who were recently abducted by bandits from their Kaduna homes from the National Security Advisor Madam Nuhu Ribadu in Abuja on Sunday. And that's all on Daily News Hub newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, African Development Bank President Adesina faults federal government's approval of duty-free food imports, says policy is depressing, reopening borders will stabilize food prices, a statement from experts. Details can be found on page 4 and 11. Naira remains subdued despite CBN's injection of $122.67 million, $35.18 billion in reserves accretion. More details can be found on page 11. Ayim Oba dumped PDP for APC in Ebonyi. Oba Enigi dispute Edo government deploys security men in court. Most states not viable, we don't need more. Statement from Abakoba. More details can be found on page 23. The big story, financial autonomy, panic in states at 437 LGs with zero allocation this month. Fate of caretaker committees LCDAs hangs in balance as nation awaits fight back by governors. Question marks over federalism and restructuring. You can read more of this story on page 3 and 5. National Media Complaints Commission begins investigation into federal government allegation against Daily Trust on Samar agreement. Tinubu world leaders react as Trump survived assassination attack at campaign rally. Tree trap to rescue as building collapses in Osun. Importers lose 284 billion naira to cargo sampling at Lagos ports in 5 years. Accuse NAFDAC, Standard Organization of Nigeria, of frequent sampling collection. Why we don't return samples, I believe that Sun and NAFDAC are replying back. More details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Richard, I know we've said quite a lot, but add a little concerning the issue of this local government autonomy.
Yeah.
And it seems as if the attention of everybody's on the money that is supposed to go to the local government. Nobody's really talking so much about the service of the local government to the people. Nobody's talking so much about the fact that they are also accountable to the people, because the question that is on my mind, and I believe other people are sharing the same thought with me, that if you feel that the governors were actually spending the money of the local government and we're not giving them, what make you feel that the local government chairman will also not spend the money without using it to actually service the people? So I'm feeling that rather than the whole fight should be on whether they are getting the money or not. Yes, we know that they need the money for development, but we should also learn to re-emphasize the fact that we have this local government chairman also accountable to the people. The service to the people is also needed, and they should know that they also need to be accountable and transparent as well. That when this money get finally, and no one that concerns ever since 2022 have been that, okay, right now that they are having the autonomy financially and also to run the state, how shall we that they will not become more like terrorists or become more like dictators for the people there? We'll not be having the issue of dictatorship going on in the local government rather than having leadership going on there. So I feel we should also have a conversation in that angle as well, rather than just concentrating on the fact that how much allocation financially will be going there. The money can be there, but how about development? Are we going to be seeing it? So we should also learn to hold the chairman eventually accountable. Already here we're seeing that a number of states are trying to rush. We've been seeing a number. Rivers is planning local government election. Plateau State is planning. Other states are also planning. So everybody just do not want to risk the fact that eventually when the allocation coming, they will not get for the local government area. So Let us also have a conversation beyond just the money. There are other things that need to be discussed concerning the local government areas, not just the money that should go to them.
So like the fact that the money is the bigger part
Mm.
of the buzz, that already shows you that that have always been the major issue when it comes to the local government autonomy. I believe that the reason why governors have not fully allowed local
Mm.
governments to have their own autonomy is because of the funding. And this is what this whole fight and battle is all about, is for the local government to be able to have access to their own funds for them to be able to do what is required. I keep saying it. If you have anything that you feel might be a concern, nobody wants to work, Sele. What are the measures you are putting as a state government for the check and balance of your local government when it comes to handling the funds? Because yes, we know how corruption is. We can't sit down and say, well, local government chairmen will not misappropriate funds. No, we can't vouch for them. These are politicians, these are government office holders. We know that corruption is at every level, regardless of how little an organization is. Talk more of the local government
Mm.
and all of that. But what do you do as a state government if you are willing to hand over your local government and give them that autonomy? Is to make sure you put an eye on them. And not only will you be the one putting an eye on them, but now the people put on. Maybe in the past, a caretaker will say, well, I'm just a caretaker, I can't do much for you. And they will go as caretaker without bringing much or contributing anything to the local government. A chairman can come and say, you can see, I don't get this allocation
Mm.
directly to me. This is what the government gives to me, and this is what I am able to do. And they will go away with years of being chairman and not being able to develop their community. But with now, there are no such excuses, in my opinion. The people, your local government people, can ask you, can, in fact, I think the local government is even more prone to accountability because it's directly to the people. It's smaller. It's easier for the people to say, we are not seeing what you're doing. It's easier for people to ask questions. It's easier for people to want and demand transparency and get it at the local government. So I think I'm not saying people will not be corrupt, but
Mm.
it can be more collective to the extent that the people would demand to see the output of what it means to have an autonomy from their chairman now at this moment than it was before, because certain excuses could be given and it would be concrete, but now it's no longer going to be an issue or a problem, because whether we like it or not, is this funds that will determine the kind of development that comes to that community. And that is why it has been moved for and pushed for over and over and over. For me, is what the state government do at the end of the day that
Mm.
determines the success of the local government, regardless of whether there is an autonomy or not. Because we have states that have been thriving in the past at the local government level. What is the difference when there was still issues of the local government not being sovereign to some extent? So I believe that the state government still determines it. You sit down, what is your house of assembly, state house of assembly for, if you guys cannot sit down and come up with blueprint, with policies that will help govern this local government when it comes to them having their own autonomy and development, and how it's going to work? There are positions also at the local government level, just as it is at the state level. You make sure that it's fully functional, because in the end, even if you give them the money eventually and they do not have other office functioning as it should, we will still be where we are. The bulk of the work, regardless, still lies on the state
Mm.
government, and the government that is willing to do the work, they will see growth in the end of the day.
No wonder I've been of a different opinion. Personally, I have not been fighting the governors for not giving the money. I have been fighting the State House of Assembly because they have failed us on every level.
Yeah.
Sometimes they even forgot that the reason why they were being elected or to be there is for you to make sure that you monitor what these governors are doing. But we've
Yes.
seen that over the years, the State House of Assembly have been in the hands of the governors. So the governors tend to tell them what to do instead
Yes.
of it to be the reverse. So let's just see how this whole thing will be. Well, before we continue with the paper review, we'd love to take a break. Quite a lot to discuss. What you feel about the issue of the local government autonomy as well? We're saying that certain local government might not actually get the autonomy because they are being run by caretaker committees and the rest. And already there have been a law that said if it is being run by caretaker committee, no funds will be going to such local government areas. So we're seeing a number of states are rushing to see how they can conduct local government elections so that they can actually get those allocations. Also, we're seeing quite a number of papers. We're seeing that the journalists that were being abducted have been released. Finally, they are with the minister as of yesterday, the Minister of Information. So we are hoping that they will be brought back to their state to continue with their relevant duties. So quite a number of other stories. We'd love to hear from you when we come back from the break. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. It's still the dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper where we're saying that cooking gas again has gone up to 14,500. That is for 12 kg. And then as well, we are seeing the assassination attempt on the life of Trump, even though that's on an international scene. And as well, we're saying that during the Euro 2024, we're saying that Spain actually won for this year. So really quite a lot for our sport lovers. We also have other stories on the paper where Dangote is talking about that right now NNPCL shares in Dangote refinery has gone down. It was about 20%, but it has gone down right now. So quite a number of stories on the paper. We would love to hear your own views concerning that in the paper. I am Sele. Remember, I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sally.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper.
The big story, most states not viable. We don't need more. Statement from Abakuba urges lawmakers, other political stakeholders to focus on restructuring Nigeria to regional government. More details can be found on page 2. Expedite action on minimum wage, NAAT tells Tinubu. Dangote refinery fertilizer coil to be listed in the first quarter of 2025. NDLEA seizes US, UK, Eurobond cocaine and opioids in Lagos. IGP orders suspension of ECMR enforcement, seeks understanding support of Nigerians residents to key into ECMR system. In Kaduna, airstrike destroyed terrorist hideout in Giwa and Igabi LGAs. Coming from a spokesperson, more details can be found on page 4 and a picture story where we can see Trump being rescued from the assassination attempt. And that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, UBA at 75, 200 million naira up for grabs in UBA legacy promo. An assassination attempt, it goes beyond democratic norms. Distasteful, coming from Tinubu condemning the attack on Trump. You can find that on page 4. Fire destroy 14 shop goods worth millions in Ogun Market. Lagos government vows to enforce ban on Danfo Korobi operation from October 1st. An alleged right breach, we have court orders Leah Mohammed to disclose detail of agreement between the federal government and X. Stayed on Nigerian News Direct, Dangote to list refinery, fertilizer plant on stock market first quarter of 2025. Lament $500 million lose over petrochemical facility delay in Ogun State. As NNPC Limited unable to pay for 20% stake, more detail found on page 4. Downside of the paper, federal government partners private sector to bring $50 million funding gap and TB by 2030, which is also part of the SDGs that we are having to be able to achieve certain things. More detail of that can be found on page 4. We have a picture story where we can see some of the governors of the APC as well as even the Senate president. Here we are having on the front page of the paper, we can see Dangote as well. So you can do well to get the paper, read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Guardian newspaper, Supreme Court judgment, 21 states race to hold election as 489 LGAs face zero FAAC allocations. Tinubu can't be accessible to all presidency, Akintola tells Ndume. Daily Trust Ombudsman commences investigation into government allegation. Senate finalizes bill that cedes control of land with gold reserves to federal government. Details can be found on page 3. Dangote refinery resolves crude supply issues to roll out petrol in August. Lagos Assembly spent 36.7 million naira on non-existing visitors' toilets, budget additional 50 million naira. Protest low turnout trail Delta cancel election. EFCC silent as Beta Edu allegedly stages comeback. More details can be found on page 26. No stopping Republican Party convention today, says Trump. And that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, Tinubu world leaders condemn assassination attempt on Trump. CBN drops BDC operators in $123 million sale. Dangote lease refinery, shares match, supplies petrol August. With the writer here saying Dangote eyes fertilizer supply to African countries. In 2 weeks, plans 70% of group revenue in Forex. More detail of that can be found on page 2, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Business Day newspaper, starting with the big story, high yields force firms to reduce bonds issuance by 98%. Insurers offer flexible options to drive penetration. You can find details on page 30. Dangote refinery eyes petrol sales in August, NGX listing in the first quarter of 2025. Hard times for borrowers as interbank rate hits 30.29%. More details can be found inside the paper, and that's all the news on Business Day newspaper.
All right, let me take the Voice of Liberty newspaper. NNPC stake in a refinery now 7.2%, coming from Aliko Dangote. More detail can be found in the paper. Nigeria's food importation policy could destroy country's agriculture, coming from the African Development Bank President Additional. And I totally agree with that, Rachel. Yes, I totally agree, because the fact that we are seeing that we're beginning to get so comfortable with importing food, we're trying to say that we're not serious about doing something about us getting involved in agriculture. Rachel, when you just take maybe a journey through Nigeria, it will surprise you to see the vast land that have been abandoned and nothing is being done about it. Just imagine if we had to utilize this land the way they are. We've mentioned a number of states. Why don't we see collaboration coming, for example, from the north? We can have Taraba, Gombe, Bauchi coming together. And then let's see what they can do from the northeast about agriculture. And then we have Kaduna, maybe down to Kano State. Let's see what the Northwest are doing about it. And then we come here and say, what can Plateau and Benue and Kogi do together about agriculture? And then we have Niger joining over there at the Northwest. Richard, just have a picture of what we will have massively when it comes to food production in the country, rather than being comfortable than going into that. We're seeing this is the concern coming from the African Development Bank president, that we are becoming very comfortable with food importation, and that can harm agriculture. We're seeing that Senate is working towards, you know what, let us see what can we do about the gold we are having. And Richard, will surprise you to know how much of gold is buried in Nigeria. And few individuals have been benefiting from it. I think was it last month or so, we saw some of the gold bars that was being submitted by the minister to the president in a way of trying to raise funds and all of that. We have all that it takes to be very, very comfortable. But our problem is mismanagement in every level. We do not have good leaders that can actually put their ideas. And no wonder during the election and the campaign in 2023, we saw where a number of experts and analysts are saying, you know what, the president needs to surround himself with quite a number of people who are good when it comes to technology, people who are vast when it comes to ideas on being creative about certain things, rather than us always concentrating on oil. We're becoming lazy as it is presently. If you ask me, there was a time that we export cocoa. There was a time we export even cotton. That is where we get all this turkey oil and all of that. But I mean, Rich, I don't know the last time I saw turkey oil. It's not as rampant as it used to be.
And it's very expensive.
Very, very expensive. And we had them.
Yeah.
So what really is the problem? So I think we need to go back to the drawing board again to do something about going back to agriculture. Because I've said this and I'll keep repeating the fact that each time we get into recession, we say that agriculture is what bails us out. I've never heard where oil. So why are we so comfortable with oil when we've seen that oil have never helped us come out of recession? Rather, agriculture does that. So I'm hoping that this present administration will think thoroughly about going back to agriculture. Let's not get too comfortable with importing everything from what we eat to what we wear. I mean, it's a shame to us as a country.
Sally, I love the word you use, and I absolutely agree with you that is our problem. We are lazy. We're very, very lazy, Sally. And I think that's the same word I keep using when I say nobody wants to do 100% of their job. Everybody is okay with just giving in some of their average, exactly, some of their effort, but nobody wants to give in 100%. And this is from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the bottom, or to the top of the Nigerian system. And I am talking about the common man, and I am talking about the government. It's everywhere. We are lazy, because I can imagine whereby you do have a garden in your house, and you were able to have that garden give you basic vegetables that you need every single day. So it means it stops you from going out to buy. Then all of a sudden, you stop gardening. You stop growing those plants. Not because you cannot. The land is still the same land. It's still fertile. You still have your seedling. But because you started seeing some kind of money from somewhere, and you feel, well, soft life is me going out there to buy. And then you neglect your garden because you can start buying. And then somehow life becomes tough. But you still don't want to go back to your gardening where you could have your daily vegetables without going to buy, but you rather just keep going for the inflated lifestyle. For me, that's Nigeria. I'm just using a typical household to explain Nigeria, and it's because you are lazy. We are not willing. The government of Nigeria is not willing to go out over and beyond. Sele, why are we borrowing money and not sinking it into agriculture? Why are we not borrowing money and sinking it into our natural resources? Why are we not? Why is our budget, the personnel cost, gulping the majority, knowing very well that this budget is going to be funded on borrowed money? Why are we taking all of these risks to borrow money, and the majority of it is not going into industrialization, is not going into agriculture, is not going to all the things that can make us become wealthy? Why are we not doing all of that? These are all the questions that a Nigerian will ask, and the answer is out there. It's because nobody wants to do the work. We are lazy. We are very, very lazy in handling things. I am lazy, Sele. A common Nigerian is lazy. We are guilty. We are all guilty of not wanting to do and to be excellent, because we are comfortable with borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, because you know the most is 8 years later, and then administrations 20, 30 years later will be the ones paying for this in the end of the day. But we can be better. At the end of the day, we can be better. There is no how we can. You always talk about agriculture. It still can take us far. It have food business. So like, you look at, why do you think the woman selling akara comes out every day? Because it's not a want, it's a need. So there would always be a market for food. We can never grow too much rice. We can never grow too much maize. If it's too much for Nigeria, there are countries that we take it to.
True. Sudan is in need of food.
Exactly. We can never have, when it comes to food, there is never too much of food as the world is, as far as the world is concerned, as it is now. There are places that will buy and rush it. Let me use that word. So why are we not putting in our all into agriculture when there are countries that their economy are way better than us on agriculture, not even oil, if we would be honest, and all of that. So I just hope that the Nigerian government, we will wake up one day to a government that wants to put in the work. But as it is now, our government is still yet ready to put in the work. We are all not yet ready to put in the hard work.
We look forward to being ready for this whole thing, Rachel. Still on the Voice of Liberty, Tinubu appoint ex-lawmaker accused of diverting COVID-19 palliative as NSITF official. Tinubu appoint ex-lawmaker accused of diverting COVID-19 palliative as the NSITF official. More detail can be found in the paper. First scarcity looms as Ipman NUPEC suspend operation. There is a looming threat of fuel scarcity across the country as loading and transporting of petrol and other related products have been halted by members of the Ipman and NUPEC in Oyo and Osun State. We see that they have packed their trucks. We hope something will be done so that they can start operations again. Coming from the EFCC burst, some religious organizations more corrupt than public officials. No, Nigeria doesn't need additional state. This is coming from Apakuba, replies the Southeast lawmakers. Regulator raised alarm over malicious activities of scanner operators in Western Seaport. Coming from General Martin Luther Agwehi, saying what Tinubu should do to end insecurity. More detail can be found concerning that in the paper, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Blueprint newspaper, attack on Trump beyond pale of democratic norms, a statement from Tinubu. Bomb substances found in suspect crook's car and home. Biden, Macron, others condemn assassination attempt. In Kaduna, the Nigerian Air Force airstrike neutralized cause of terrorism in Giwa and Igabi. More details can be found on page 14. Information Minister Idris receives freed journalists, hails NSA and others. UBA at 75, customers set to win over 200 million naira, kicks off legacy promo. Sports AFCON 2025, Super Eagles to face Benin Republic in first game. Federal government demands apologies, drags daily trust before ombudsman. Those agitating for Nigeria's division are dreamers, a statement from Buratai. We have GIBWIS warns against protests. Domestic food production crucial to price stability, additional tells the federal government. ASI acquires 60% stake in Kaduna Electric. More details can be found on page 13. No price variation on projects awarded in 2024, statement from Mahi. Flow stations metering contract will improve transparency in oil and gas, coming from Lakpobiri. You can find details of his statement on page 22, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
Richard, was the honor to round it up with the Punch Sports Extra newspaper.
All right, on Punch Sport Extra, the big story: Spain 2, England 1, final heartbreak. Three Lions' 58-year wait for first major men's trophy continue. You can find details on page 3. Osimhen impresses Conte amid exit talks. Atalanta sets 60 million euros Lookman asking price. Ziggy joins United. Alcaraz trash Djokovic to retain Wimbledon title. More details can be found on page 8. Dessers rules out Rangers exit. Indeed happy to be back in the English Premier League. Chelsea plan Watkins Gallagher swap deal. More details can be found on page 5. And we have Southampton wants Ramsdale. City receives £25 million Edison bid. More details can be found on page 4. Aruna among top seeds for Olympics draw. In Paris Olympics, women's 4 times 100-meter Nigeria's strongest relay team. Durant doubtful for U.S. Olympics basketball team. More details can be found inside the paper, and that's all the news on Punch Sport Extra.
Right, that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this.
You're
with
welcome,
me.
Sarah.
Thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our supporters as well, to the entire crew. Thank you for making this program a success. We look forward again to doing this tomorrow. To have a blessed day ahead.